Welcome back to Eva Ibbotson's The Secret of Platform 13. Today I'm going to read part of chapter 3 for you. But before I begin, let's just think about what's happened so far in the story. We've been introduced to the most remarkable and idyllic hidden island that is ruled by a kind and honourable king and queen. They've just had a baby boy. This prince was taken by his nursery nurses through the Gump to London, where he was kidnapped. We've also been introduced to Mr. and Mrs. Trottle. These are a very wealthy couple, and Lorena Trottle is a lady who does not like the word no. She expects to get what she wants. She wanted a baby. When she couldn't have one, and when she couldn't adopt one, she's stolen one. She has named this stolen baby Raymond Huntington Trottle, and now she plans to take him away and return in a year's time and pretend the baby is her own. Let's start with chapter 3. Hodge Gribble was a hag. She was a very young one and a disappointment to her parents. The Gribbles lived in the north of the island and came from a long line of frightful and monstrous women who flapped and shrieked about, giving nightmares to people who had been wicked or making newts come out of their mouths of anyone who told a lie. Hodge's oldest sister had a fingernail so long you could dig the garden with it. The next girl had black hairs like piano wires coming out of her ears. The third had stripy feet, and so on, down to the sixth, who had blue teeth and a wart the size of a saucer on her chin. Then came Hodge. There was great excitement before she was born because Mrs. Gribble herself had been a 7th daughter, and now the new baby would be the 7th also. And the 7th daughter of a 7th daughter is supposed to be very special indeed. But when the baby came, everyone fell silent, and a cousin of Mrs. Gribble's said, "Oh dear." The baby's fingernails were short. Not one whisker grew out of her ears. Her feet were absolutely ordinary. "She looks like a small pink splodge," the cousin went on. So Mrs. Gribble decided not to call her daughter Noticula or Valpurgina, and settled for Hodge, which rhymed with splodge, and hoped that she would improve as she grew older. And up to a point Hodge did get a little more hag-like. She had unequal eyes. The left one was green and the right one was brown, and she had one blue tooth. But it was a molar, right at the back, the kind you only see when you're in the dentist's. There was also a bump on one of her feet, which just could have been the beginning of an extra toe, though it was not very big. Nothing is worse than knowing you have failed your parents, but Hodge did not whinge or whine. She was a strong-willed little girl, with a chin like a prize fighter's and long black hair, which she drew like a curtain when she didn't want to speak to anyone, and she was very independent. What she liked best was to wander along the seashore and making friends with the mist makers and picking up treasures as she found there. It was on one of these lonely walks that she came across the nurse's cave. It was a big, dark cave with water dripping from the walls, and the noise that came from it made Hodge's blood run cold. Dreadful moans, frightful wails, shuddering sobs. She stopped to listen, and after a while she heard that the wails had words to them, and that there seemed to be not one wailing voice, but 3. "Oh," she heard, "oh, I shall never forgive myself, never, 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 wailed the second voice. I deserve to die, moaned a third. Hodge crossed the sandy bay and entered the cave. 3 women were sitting there, dressed in the uniform of nursery nurses. Their hair was plastered with ashes, their face was smeared with mud, and as they wailed and rocked, they speared pieces of completely burnt toast from a smouldering fire and put them into their mouths. What's the matter? asked Hodge. What's the matter? said the first woman. Hodge could see that she had red hair beneath the ashes and a long freckled nose. What's the matter? repeated the second one, who looked like the first one, and Hodge realized that she had to be her sister. How is it you don't know about our sorrow and our guilt? said the third, and she too was alike that Hodge knew they must be triplets. Then Hodge remembered who they were. The tragedy had happened before she was born, but even now the island was still mourning. Are you the nurses who took the prince up there and allowed him to be stolen? We are, said one of the women. She turned furiously to her sister. The toast is not burnt enough, Lily. Go and burn it some more. Then Hodge heard how they had lived in the cave ever since that dreadful day, so as to punish themselves. How they ate only food that was burnt or mouldy or so stale that it hurt their teeth, and never anything they were fond of, like bananas. How they never cleaned their teeth or washed, so that fleas could jump into their clothes and bite them, and always chose the sharpest stones to sleep on, so that they woke up sore and bruised. What happened to the prince after he was stolen? asked Hodge. She was much more interested in the stolen baby than in how bruised the nurses were or how disgusting their food was. He was snatched by an evil woman named Mrs. Trottle and taken to her house. How do you know, asked Hodge, if the door in the gump was closed? Hags do not start school till they are 8 years old, so she had still a lot to learn. There are those who pass through the gump, even when it's shut, and they tell us. Ghosts, do you mean? Violet nodded. My foot feels comfortable, she grumbled. I must go and dip it in the icy water and turn my toes blue. What did she do with him, with the baby? She pretended he was her own son. He lives with her now. She called him Raymond Trottle. Raymond Trottle, repeated Hodge. It seemed an unlikely name for a prince. And he's still living up there and going to school and everything. He doesn't know who he is. That's right, said Rose, poking a stick into her ear so as to try and draw blood. But in 2 years from now, the gump will open, and the rescuers will go and pick him up and bring him back. And then we will stop wailing and eating burnt toast, and our feet will grow warm, and the sun will shine on our faces. And the Queen will smile again, said Lily. Yes, that will be the best of all, when the Queen smiles properly once more. Hodge was very thoughtful as she had made her way back along the shore, taking care not to step on the toes of the mistmakers who lay basking on the sand. The prince was only 4 months older than she was. How did he feel being Raymond Trottle and living in the middle of London? What would he think when he found out that he wasn't who he thought he was? And who would be chosen to bring him back? The rescuers would be famous. They would go down in history. I wish I could go, thought Hodge, nudging her blue tooth with her tongue. I wish I could be a rescuer. Already she felt that she knew the prince, that she would like him for a friend. Suddenly, she stopped. She set her jaw. I will go, she said aloud. I'll make them let me go. From that day on, Hodge was a girl with a mission. She started school the following year and worked so hard that she was soon top of her class. She jogged. She threw boulders around to strengthen her biceps. She studied maps of London and tried to cough up frogs. And a month before the Gump was due to open, she wrote a letter to the palace. When you have worked and worked for something, it is almost impossible to believe that you can fail. Yet, when the names of the rescuers were announced, Hodge Gribble's name was not among them. It was the most bitter disappointment. She would have taken it better if the people who had been chosen were mighty and splendid warriors who would ride through the Gump on horseback. But they were not. A wheezing old wizard, a slightly batty fay, and a one-eyed giant who lived in the mountains, moving goats about and making cheese. Right, I'm going to stop reading there because I think we have a lot to think about so far. Come back and join me later. Bye.